How's it going, guys? This is Zonal Fair bringing you a gameplay commentary today of Far Cry 3. What I want to talk to you about today though is something entirely different, and that is the sort of confirmation that the next Xbox is going to be using always on DRM. In a series of tweets posted by a creative designer at Microsoft, it basically seems that the next Xbox will employ always online DRM, sort of make you unable to play your games offline, and this has been met with a very poor response, and rightly so. As more of a PC gamer than a console gamer these days, it affects me a little less than it'll affect console players in general, but I wanted to add my 2 pence worth to the discussion that's currently raging the internet about this, and that is that some people are like, oh, I don't see what a problem is. If you play on Xbox Live, then you're always connected anyway, so where's the issue? And you'd think that, oh, okay, that sounds reasonable enough. However, it doesn't take into account numerous things like, what if your internet connection is a bit hit and miss? Say your internet connection isn't entirely stable. So you'll be sat down, you'll be playing your game on your Nextbox, and all of a sudden your internet connection will go, and that'll kind of make you unable to play the game that you've gone out to the store and you've paid good money for, yet somehow you can't play the game because of this always online DRM that seems to be going to be employed in the next Xbox. As a PC gamer, we've had to put up with this sort of stuff for years and years, and we're finally getting to a stage where things are getting a little better in terms of digital rights management. A company that used to use always on DRM have backtracked completely on that policy. And ironically, it's Ubisoft, the guys who create Far Cry 3, which I'm playing there. So in a roundabout ways, it is almost relevant. Ubisoft released a number of games years ago. I think one of them was Assassin's Creed 2, which required an always-on connection. The second that you lost connection to the internet, you would basically be unable to continue much further than where you were in the game. And understandably, for people who had so-so internet connections, this was a big no-no. And even for people who had perfectly stable internet connections, it was still a big no-no, purely because of the fact that this was enforced. Your game progress would basically be halted by the fact that you weren't online anymore. There have been various other sort of DRM techniques that have been used throughout the years, and in my opinion, all DRM seems to do is punish the legitimate customer. Punish the guy who has actually gone out and paid good money for games. And it kind of seems the same thing for people who are going to be purchasing the next generation Xbox, as well as any games they have. Because it seems that the guys who sort of they kind of crack games so you can play them offline and things like that, they always seem to be one step ahead of the DRM practices which are employed against them to try and stop them doing that. And for the guys that don't really care about sort of paying for their games, it's not an awful lot of bother for them. So who does DRM ultimately go for? And the end result of that is DRM ultimately goes for what seems to be the legitimate customer, the guy who's been out, he's bought his game, and he's being punished basically by the various DRM techniques that are in use in the gaming industry today. Some people will see sort of Steam as a DRM, and to all intents and purposes, Steam ultimately is DRM. However, in my opinion, it is DRM done right. It's not so enforced upon you that it almost isn't intrusive. Steam also allows you to play your games offline. So if you've sort of you're going to be without the net for a couple of days, or your internet connection isn't so great and you don't want to keep on being connected and disconnected, you can start Steam in offline mode simply by just unplugging your Ethernet cable or disabling your Wi-Fi adapter, and you'll be able to continue playing the games which you have purchased. That's not really what the next generation Xbox seems to be favouring though, and it seems to be favouring more of a constantly on DRM, sort of like a punishes the guy who actually goes out and buys the game. And if these they're kind of rumours, it's kind of half confirmed right now, but if this ultimately turns out to be true, this is going to be a big nail in the coffin for Microsoft's console dominance, sort of tryouts. I, for one, will not be purchasing the next generation Xbox if this does appear to be the case. If always on DRM is implemented in Microsoft's next generation console, I will vote with my wallet, and my wallet says screw you to always online DRM. I'm not a fan of it, and I don't agree with it in the slightest, and I feel that it punishes the legitimate customer who already has to go through enough sort of loopholes as it is simply to play the games which they have gone out and purchased. And on that thought, with the PS4 due out towards the end of the year, to simply win the next generation console race, all the PS4 has to do is not implement always online DRM, and they will be onto a winner. For all its pros and cons that the PlayStation 3 has, the PlayStation Network's always free online service is a thing going for it. If Sony say, yep, PlayStation Network is still going to continue to be free, that's going to influence a lot of people in their decisions. And if they then come out after this latest always online DRM fiasco and come out and say you don't always have to be connected to play your games, then that is a surefire winner. I feel that that's going to sway a lot of people from buying any next generation Xbox towards the Sony side. A lot of you will be thinking at this stage, but hey, Zonal, you're a PC gamer. What's this got to do with you? Well, as well as being a PC gamer, I also do like the odd flutter on console games. There are some games for the PS3 and Xbox that I simply cannot get for the PC. Games like Uncharted, Gears of War. So I do have an occasional flutter on these games on the consoles, where I cannot actually get them for the PC. So in a roundabout ways, this does affect me. This will massively influence my own purchase of a next-gen console, because even though I play a lot more PC games than I do console games these days, I still do like playing console games, sort of like sitting down and making my way through Uncharted 3 or having a blast on the multiplayer for a while. So this will ultimately affect my decision as well as numerous other people's decision should Microsoft decide to employ always on sort of connectivity requirements for their games. Reading around the internet as well for this sort of latest saga of always online gaming for the next gen Xbox, you'll see that it actually originally started from a series of tweets, and it's sort of like just escalated from there really. What I find as well from sort of companies in general is, I use Twitter. I don't use it an awful lot, but I do use Twitter, and occasionally I'll check up on what my favourite game studios is saying, what, for example, Rebellion is saying about Sniper Elite, since I enjoyed Nazi Zombie Army so much, and I'll take a look to see what they're saying. I find that such controversial subjects posted by employees of a company such as Microsoft never do anyone any good whatsoever, and only antagonize basically the gaming community. A lot of the gaming community are up in arms about this latest DRM thing for the next gen Xbox, and so they should be. Anything like this implemented is no good for anyone. Years of being a PC gamer has taught me that online DRM needs to be unintrusive. For example, Steam, it needs to be very unintrusive. Steam basically requires you to have an account, and that's pretty much about it, as long as you're logged into your account with all your credentials and everything else like that. Steam doesn't care whether you're online or offline, and that seems to be the way that you should be doing DRM, making it as unintrusive while protecting your content as you can without pissing off the people who have gone out and purchased all your games. Ubisoft did a massive U-turn on their always online DRM requirements for their games, and as a result of that, a lot more of their games are selling on the PC platform now, which should surely send a message to other companies who implement draconian DRM policies on their players. Microsoft would do well to take a look at all the DRM sagas that we've had to deal with in PC gaming over sort of like the last 6 years in particular, and take a good lesson from what has actually happened and how gamers have reacted to really draconian always online requirements for games, as such a thing is not going to bode well for any game, let alone a console entirely based on an always online requirement for their games. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this gameplay commentary. If you've got anything to say, do let me know in the comments below, and if you're not already, follow me on Twitter. Until next time guys, take care.
Gets me every time.